My address is 3456 107th Street, Corona, Corona, New York, United States of America.
Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street.
Can't you hear the pitter-pat? That happy tune is my step. Life could be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.
I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade. Now I am not afraid. This rover has crossed over.
If I never have a cent, I'll be rich as Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worries on the doorstep. Life could be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.
Can you hear that pitter-pat? You know that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.
I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade, but now I'm not afraid. This rover crossed over.
If I never had a cent, you know I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust round my feet on the sunny.
On the shady,
Sunny.
on the sunny side of the street.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy International Jazz Day. Thank you for spending some time with us. We are the crew, the heartbeat, the soul of the Louis Armstrong House Museum is in the room today. My name is Ricky Riccardi. I am Director of Research Collections, but we also have our programs man there, Jake Goldbass. Say hello, Jake.
Hey
And
everyone, nice to be here.
yeah, man, we have our fellows, Maglin Bertrand, Tatiana Lightborn. Say hello.
Hi. Hey guys.
Adriana Philstrip, our Visitor Services Manager over there in the corner. How's it going, Adriana?
Very good. Very good.
And the man, the myth, the legend, there's only one. That is Hiram Harris, the 10-year man, celebrated a decade on the job last year. We're doing this today because it has been quite a year, for everybody watching this, it has been quite a year. In March of 2020, we were giving tours. We were welcoming researchers into our archives. We had education programs going. We had public programs going. And then the world stopped. And it took a few weeks to kind of recalibrate ourselves. But we have managed to contribute an incredible, I think, slate of virtual programming and online programming and ways to interact with visitors around the world that, frankly, were not possible before the pandemic. So we'd like to tell you a little bit more about some of that kind of stuff. But we also realize that not everybody watching this has been to Corona, Queens and taken a tour of the Armstrong House. So I would like to ask Highland, who, like I said, celebrated 10 years. It's going to be 11 years, I think, in a couple of days at the Armstrong House. He's our veteran. He's probably given more tours than anybody alive. So, Highland, what's the magic of the Louis Armstrong House Museum? What do you miss, and what are you looking forward to getting back to when this is behind us?
I mean, that's wow, that's pretty. I will say a big part of like the museum and the experience is that just so many people who come there are just so enthralled by Louis Armstrong. Uh, they might know a little bit about him or they might be experts, um, but there's this magnet in Corona, and this magnet's just got this pull on all four corners of the planet. So we get people from Chile and Africa and all over Europe and Japan and just you name it. We've seen everybody come in, and everybody walks out of there surprised. Uh, like everybody walks out of there a little overwhelmed. Everybody finds out about Lucille, something they didn't really know much about beforehand. They learn more about Lewis's accomplishments, and also just getting to the museum is just a pilgrimage. You know, it's a trek. You have to kind of navigate a couple of different trains and walk through the neighborhood, and it's easy to get lost when you get there. And then when people find it, they just have this look on their face like this is it, you know. And we've had so many notable people over the years. It's hilarious. You know, I remember I was in the back doing some mundane work, and I heard somebody talking really loud about Parliament Funkadelic, and I'm like, well, I got to see who this is. We walk out front, and it's Cornel West. You know, nobody knew who he was, but I was like, sit down. I'm gonna make sure you get a good tour or something like that. You know, or I wasn't there that day, but David Byrne showed up, and nobody knew I would have known who he was because my sister went to RISD, but like he was there and he was just kind of like incognito, and then they pushed him aside because Tony Bennett showed up. It's you know so we didn't really find out about it till he like blogged about it afterwards or something like that. So there's a lot of moments like that. Bette Midler showed up. Were you there for that day, Ricky? Were you there that day?
No, I remember Michael was the one who handled that. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. She was kind of incognito, but my theory is she was probably doing some reconnaissance for Hello Dolly, which she started on Broadway like a year or so afterwards.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just a lot. Matt Dillon and Brantford and Winton came. Winton, that the famous Winton visit that day. So you have a lot of like a lot of notable people, but for like every notable person, there's like 1,000 just like incredible, interesting, just full-hearted, warm people. They show up and they all walk out a little more warm-hearted. And so like all of those incidences, they get emotional, or they're very academic in their approach. Like the experts, they have every record and they walk out and they're just like these, they're, they said that I had no idea, even if you were like a Louis Armstrong expert, just to see like the leopard printed steps is like a lesson. You know what I mean? You're just like, whoa, So I think there's a huge thing. We have there's such an incredible experience. When Selma was alive, Selma would sit in the gift shop and she would just lay the law down. And so it wasn't just a museum, it was like a living document of somebody who actually helped Lewis move to Corona, her family. And so there was no more better insider information that we had on hand 24 hours a day than like Selma. So those are moments that I've missed while we've been closed. We've always had some strange people too. Adriana can attest to that. People who show up with dolls and we're like, who are these people? And it's kind of a little strange sometimes, but everybody's got like a really good heart. A lot of I will say this too. There's a lot of special moments too. Uh, the one that strikes to mind was when, at the end of a tour, uh, one guy gets on his knee and he proposes marriage to his wife in the den, you know. And
Well,
so
Blueberry Hill was playing actually.
he was playing, right, right. So like, what is she gonna do? Say no? You know what I mean?
A cappella by Lewis. A cappella.
Wind and the willows play love's sweet melody, and all of those vows we made was never to be, though we were but oh, you part of me still. Oh yes, for you were my thrill. Yes, on Blueberry Hill, papa do do, papa do do, baby do do, papa do do, yeah man.
My first grade teacher. There was like a group of seniors. There was a group of seniors at the house, and I just looked at this lady, and I was just like, "You're my first grade teacher." I hadn't seen this lady since the '70s. And she flipped out. I hadn't thought about her since the '70s. So, so
Yeah.
like I think all those moments they really add up to the future of where we're going in this organization. Like we have all these programs, we have a new building opening up, and so now like these experiences, whether they're virtual or on site, it's going to have a wider reach. It can have access to more people. The exhibit's going to be more engaging. The archives will be more accessible. And so, like whatever environment that we created prior to reopening is just going to be magnified. It'll be a little different, but it'll be magnified going into the future, which I think is part of our responsibility. We just can't. We have to grow with the world.
Now, Adriana, you've been with us now since 2015, and you have your fair share of stories and everything else. Why don't you talk about the things that you miss from coming to the museum and some special visitors that have come across in your era?
Yeah. I think the thing I miss the most is really the magic of the house. Highland talked about it, but I think that having this time, forced time to lock down, just make keep think of the thing as a whole, right? And it has been quite a ride. I really miss the the magic of just giving a tour one person at a time. Even though sometimes we have yeah, tours that are crazy, and we have 15 people at some point we had in one tour. I just really miss the fact that when we were there, kind of time stopped, and people allowed themselves to listen to the story and to engage with it and to just let the world wait. Um, and that's something to miss, definitely. I miss so many moments, and I cannot tell you, sometimes yes, somebody famous might be at the house and might be really special for everyone in the room, but sometimes it's just ordinary people that um, make the experience so meaningful, and then it makes the job evergreen. um, so I miss so many moments. I've had to give a tour to a deaf man from Norway, uh, and it was a beautiful thing to touch the walls with him and let him vibrate. Listen to the voice of Louis vibrate on the walls. Um, so I don't know. I really miss the students in Corona. Um, I think that just now that I have a baby, I really just admire the effort that our teachers make and our educators make to put our stories into words, to make sure that our generations coming understand them. And I was just so moved that second graders would be excited about a house built in 1910. That was something quite unique. But one special visit, I mean, we have had amazing people, Wynton Marsalis, and I had to welcome Van Morrison 15 minutes before we closed the museum, and peek in the den. And, a group of 10 people just didn't realize that Van Morrison peeked into the den because he wanted to see Tony Bennett's painting and take a picture with his not smartphone. So those are incredible moments. But I will always remember, and thank you, Ricky, for reminding me of this moment, featuring it on Lewis's birthday this last year. But the visit of Enrico Tommaso, obviously from Italy, but lived in London um, almost his whole life. And he met Louis in June in 1968. Um, him and his father welcomed Louis at the airport in London, and he played Basin Street Blues for Louis with his little trumpet. But Louis stops and he listens to this 7-year-old boy that's playing this song for him. And it's exactly the feeling that I have when I in a tour with ordinary people from everywhere in the world. Just stop in front of them, they listen, you listen to them, and then a relationship starts. That's what happened with Luis and Enrico. Enrico ends up in the press conference being featured the whole time. Luis is there. He's backstage with his new friend, getting advice on how to play the trumpet. And the last advice: do not marry anyone that don't love your trumpet, your music, your horn. But listening to Enrico today tell that story, um, it's unbelievable. Because not only he tells it with so much, I mean, definitely you can tell that he's just changed for life, which happened so many times with Lewis. Um, he just he was just so humble, and it was what happened when he came to the house. He came with Ricky, and they were so excited, like two kids coming to, oh my god, like they were so excited to see the house. Enrico is with his family, his wife and his daughter, and he's holding the letters that Lewis um, sent to him, and it's kind of reunited, like all the documents that we had that he had sent to Lewis, and then he had Lewis's responses. Was really exciting, and the generosity uh, um, that he gave the stories to us was just, refreshing. I loved it. I show the he was we had the pictures of Enrico as a little boy at the airport, and we held it next to him, and he smiled wide. We had the picture of him right there in Lewis's garage, next to his 1968 photo, and and yeah, and they kept that friendship, which is really beautiful, because those are the last years of Lewis's life, and he has this beautiful friendship with this 7-year-old boy and his family. And there's a tape that they send to Lewis to the hospital, wishing Lewis to get well. And Enrico just this last year tells the story of Lewis replying to that tape, showing the letter, of that response. And wow, back to Corona. You really think all those letters are real people, real friendships, that Louis Armstrong had around the world. And you can see it. Enrico, when the pandemic hit, called all his friends around the world and started playing duets on the web. And you think, yeah, that's kind of the most important thing, that in that humble house in Corona, Lewis created a universal hub, and kind of attracting people that think globally. I think that's what we all, what I really miss, just having the world that Lewis befriended come back to us and have a wonderful time.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Adriana. Yeah, I think we should have some music right about now, and Enrico gives us the perfect jump off point, because as you mentioned, it was August of last year when I was contacted by the great clarinetist down in New Orleans, Evan Christopher, who said, "Hey, what are you guys doing for Lewis's birthday?" And I said, "Well, not much, because we're closed. We used to have big concerts in the garden and cakes and red beans and rice, and we're like, we're just gonna sit this one out." He said, "No, no, no, you can't do that." And Evan spearheaded this movement. He called musicians from around the world, and we did like a 3-hour Facebook thing with interviews and music. And we had bands in France, bands in New York, bands in California, all contributing pieces. But I do think the emotional highlight was Enrico Tommaso's visit, where he told all these great stories, and then he played the song "That's My Home." So let's relive that moment from August of 2020 and listen to Lewis's little disciple, Enrico Tommaso, perform one of our theme songs here, "That's My Home."
Where the sun sets in the sky, flowers never die, friends don't pass you by. Well, that's my home. welcome back, no matter where I roam, where I roam. And just a little shack to me is home sweet home, where the streams and the rivers flow, the old shady pine trees grow. Need not say no more, well that's my home.
So there is the great Enrico Tommaso doing That's My Home. If you would like to watch that, and if you would like to get Enrico's entire life story, it's all on the web on our virtual exhibit site, which is called That's My Home. This was something that we had always kind of dreamed of doing, but we never had the time. I mean, the archives was always a two-person operation, and we would get students, we would get researchers, we would get class visits, plus new acquisitions coming in, digitization, social media, grants. I mean, you name it. And so the thought of having a virtual exhibit website was always kind of like pie in the sky. The pandemic hits, we closed, and we were about 2 weeks in when our archivist at the time, Sarah Rose, said, let's do it. This is the time. And then our acting director at the time, Jeff Rosenstock, he said, well, why don't you make the theme home? Everybody's stuck at home. Lewis loved his home in Corona, Queens, and when he was there, he made tapes and scrapbooks and wrote letters and listened to music and hung out with friends. Why don't you make that the theme? And that's really all we needed. And we launched it in April of 2020 with a huge story in the Washington Post. And it has not let up. We have about, I think, over 70 entries on the website. The URL is virtualexhibits.lewisarmstronghouse.org. But I'm just going to share my screen real quick just so you can see the site in action. Once you're there, at virtualexhibits.lewisarmstronghouse.org. This is what you'll see. There's an introduction. Then you have all these thematic pieces eulogizing the chops for all the trumpet players out there. If you've ever wondered about Louis Armstrong's warm-up routine, you can go to this entire page and you can actually listen to the man warming up. Here he is playing along with the radio. Usual time. Just, hanging out at home in the 50s. There's the Schlivovitz interview with the great Dan Morgenstern and the late Jack Bradley, a 2.5-hour conversation in Armstrong's home. If you've ever wondered what's in Louis Armstrong's record collection, check out From Stravinsky to Gizzard, a kind of introduction to all the different sounds he listened to, with lots of audio there of Louis playing DJ. Louis and Collages, a whole piece about some of his best collages. Adriana did a whole piece about Louis and the Neighbors, and the barbershops and all the kids in Corona. Louis and Civil Rights, about Louis telling off Eisenhower and putting his career on the line to speak out against injustice. An entire long piece with audio and everything. The story of Lucille, she has an incredible story herself, so we told her story as a dancer and her devotion to Louis's legacy, and on and on. I could sit here. Like I said, there's over 70 entries. Here's this Louis Armstrong and his friends session, a scrapbook. We took one of his scrapbooks and went page by page and talked about what was in them. The last music Louis ever recorded. We have a whole piece about that on his tape, his last tape he made before he died. Tribute to the Newport Jazz Festival, the story of neighbor Selma Geraldo, more scrapbooks, more tapes, more birthdays, on and on. There's Enrico that we just heard from. You can get his whole story if you click that post. There's actually sections hanging with Highland, a bunch of conversations me and Highland Harris had earlier last year. You can watch a virtual tour with me, Satch's Tracks, that is music found in Louis Armstrong's collection. You can hear Louis tell off Jelly Roll Morton. You can listen to Bix Beiderbecke and even read Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, something that we found on one of his tapes. So we put the full audio on the site.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
So there's really no end in sight. You know, right now, our longtime friend Jack Bradley passed away in March, and we have Jack's collection thanks to a grant from the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation. And we have already posted 4 parts. It's probably going to be about 20 parts, but we're telling Jack's story in photos and news clippings and concert programs and things that he left behind. And so check out virtualexhibits.louisarmstronghouse.org. And like I said, it's our way of sharing the materials. This would not have been possible without a $2.7 million grant from Fund to Foundation that allowed us to digitize the entire collection. So I am sitting here. I've been sitting here since March. I've got hard drives, and I've just got hard drives all around my computer, and the entire archives, everything at Queens College is at my fingertips now. So it's something that we can't wait. I personally can't wait to get into the new building. The new Armstrong Center is going to be the home for the archives. But at the same time, we've found a way to share those archives with people around the world, and we're excited. And there won't be any end to that in sight. That's for sure. A similar staff member who had a problem like mine was the great drummer and educator Jake Goldbass, who was in the middle of several education programs at the time when Corona hit, and Jake had to pivot quickly and get the word to the students in brand new methods that had not even been invented yet. And so I would like to invite Jake over to the space here and talk about your experience with dealing with the change to virtual and how we've survived and thrived ever since. Jake?
Thanks, Ricky. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here with all of you today, celebrate this great day. Last year, we all had to roll with the punches, and this moving target has really been a blessing to be able to engage these archives. One of the most significant archives in the world. And so really being able to kind of access that and create programs that celebrate the legacy of Louis Armstrong through 3 pillars, really, of artistic excellence, education, and global ambassadorship. We've been able to really dive into so much programming that I'm really proud of. And I wanted to kind of highlight 3 of those programs for you all today. And all these programs are available on our website. And I really encourage you to dive as deeply as possible and reach out to us with questions about how you can bring these programs into your schools or to people you love. And we made these programs with the community in mind, and really the global community of reaching out to Corona and beyond Corona. One of the programs that we created over this past year is called Armstrong Now. And Armstrong Now started as this idea of public programs that we were going to do in partnership with Joe's Pub and the Queens Botanical Garden and the Museum of the City of New York and Steinway Hall. And we totally converted that plan to creating short films. And Tatiana, you want to tell everybody a little bit about Armstrong Now?
Yeah, for sure, Jake. So Armstrong Now, it is part of the Louis Armstrong archives. And we already spoke about how it's one of the most significant Black archival collections in the world, as well as one of the most substantial of any jazz musician. With this new programmatic and interpretive expansion, the Louis Armstrong House aspires to contextualize the Armstrong contributions, firmly from the historical and 21st century constellations of Black making, thinking, and vitality. The results of these engagements is a development of collaborative projects, artworks, and a suite of short films. In December 2020, after the pandemic hit, we premiered 4 full episodes with accompanying artist talks. You can find them on our website. Go ahead and check out the words, the sounds, the movements that reflect through the walls of the Armstrong house. We're capturing the past, giving a glimpse of the future. And you can find all that stuff on our website.
Thanks, Tatiana. I appreciate it. Yeah, and they're 4 short films. One of them features Broadway stars Daniel J. Watts and Derek Baskin, amazing musicians Brett Williams and Braxton Cook. Another one features a new collaboration between Christian Sands and Martha Nichols. It's just beautiful, and we brought a Steinway grand piano, thanks to Steinway, into the garden that Christian played. It was just a breathtaking moment. The third film in this suite is called Inside the Laughing Barrel. That's a collaboration between poet Naomi Extra, musician Melanie Charles, and dancer Kayla Farish. And the fourth film was made all at the archives, not at the house, but inside the archives among the stacks, with 3 of the best vocalists in New York City, Vuyoso Tashe, Alita Moses, and Michael Mayo, with percussionist Nega Santos. So all 4 of them really had this assignment to dive into the archives and create something new. And all 4 of these cohorts really took it and ran with it. The Real Ambassadors was a program that we created to really celebrate a huge part of Louis Armstrong's legacy being global ambassadorship. To continue in his footsteps, we created a new education initiative celebrating the landmark recording, The Real Ambassadors. The Real Ambassadors was written by Dave and Iola Brubeck, all about how Louis was America's first cultural ambassador for the United States. This jazz musical addressed racism, the music business, and the power of music to bring us all together. I had the thrill of working with the Brubeck family, Chris and Tish Brubeck, Alfonso Horn, Camille Thurman, Vuyoso Tashe, Chanel Johns, Chris Padishall, and India Owens to bring this music to life. We filmed it between 3 locations: the Brubeck home, the Louis Armstrong House Museum, and the Django at the Roxy Hotel. Now, this education film that we made has been seen by over 20,000 people around the world, and we're teaching virtual workshops every month to conservatories across Russia around these core principles. This program could not have been created without the help of Mary McBride and the Forum for Cultural Exchange. And it was really a pleasure to create this initiative. I actually, in high school, got to play through some of this music with Dave Brubeck growing up in Connecticut, and it's always been really near and dear to my heart to kind of celebrate the cultural exchange between Louis and Dave and Iola Brubeck. And getting to do this with the Brubecks and get into the home was really just a dream come true. And I saw this article in Town and Country magazine that the Brubeck home was for sale, and so I immediately called Chris Brubeck and said, "Oh, I have this dream to create an educational film around the Real Ambassadors that is at the Brubeck house and the Armstrong house. Can we get in there?" And he was like, "Yeah, we would love to have you. Absolutely come in, but we're moving out the pianos in 2 weeks because it's sold." And so within 2 weeks, we got everyone there. We filmed everything the day before the historic Dave Brubeck piano that he wrote, Blue Rondo a la Turk and in your own sweet way, all these tunes on before it was taken out of the house. So I really encourage you to see that film. It's up on our Facebook page right now. And we also created a whole education initiative around it. It's been really great to reach out around the world and teach students not only about this legacy, but just the core principles of cultural exchange, the civil rights movement, and really kind of the guiding principles of jazz, being, you know, New Orleans, swing, blues, improvisation. It's been really a blast.
Who's the real ambassador? It is evident we represent American society, noted for its etiquette and manners and sobriety. We have all the protocol with absolute propriety. We're Yankees to the core. We're the real ambassadors, though we may appear as bores. We are diplomats in our proper hats. Our tie becomes habitual along with all the ritual. The diplomatic course has been analyzed and criticized by NBC and CBS. Senators and congressmen are so concerned they can't resist. State Department stands in all your coup d'etat has met success and caused this great uproar. We're the real ambassador, yeah, the real ambassador.
Yeah, which kind of leads me to our last initiative that I want to talk about today. We have a ton, but the last one I wanted to talk about is a program called Voices of Freedom that we made in partnership with the National Young Arts Foundation. And Magdalene and Tatiana were so helpful in creating the entire presentation with me, and I'm really proud of how it came out. So yeah, Magdalene, you want to tell everyone about Voices of Freedom?
So Voices of Freedom is an education series that explores the role of art as a vehicle for social change through the lens of Louis Armstrong. We invite students in high school and beyond to create new works while learning about the processes and techniques of world-class artists. We created 5 virtual workshops across the disciplines of writing, jazz, dance, voice, and visual arts. In addition to each virtual workshop, we've created asynchronous forums for students to think critically and create their own works based on the Armstrong archives. These films dive deep into the artistic processes and deconstruct works created by world-class artists such as Daniel J. Watts, Marquise Hill, Chanel da Silva, India Carney, and Cornelius Tulla. This program was made possible with the generous support of the National Young Arts Foundation.
Thanks, Magdalene. Yeah, and enjoy this trailer right now about Voices of Freedom.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Voices of Freedom, the new education initiative of the Louis Armstrong House Museum and Archives. An in-depth series of workshops, this initiative inspires a new generation of artists in high school and beyond to create new works based on the legacy of Louis Armstrong. To bring Voices of Freedom to your school, visit louisarmstronghouse.org.
In celebration of also this legacy of giving back to the community through education, the Armstrong House has, since 1987, invited students from around Queens into the backyard for a program we call Pops is Tops. Now, last year, we had to, for the first time, try to just pivot this whole program to being online. So we created a virtual field trip for Pops is Tops that was all done remotely. And we're so excited to do that again this year, but we can get back inside the house this year safely to try and up the experience for all of these students. And we're gonna have our amazing host, trumpeter, band leader, and just an all-around amazing human, Alfonso Horn, tell you a little bit about the experience now.
to be hosting this year's Pops is Tops concert for thousands of students in the Queens area and around the country. Now, this is one of my favorite events because I get to play in Louis Armstrong's garden. Now, this year is very special because we get to take a tour through Louis Armstrong's house. We're going to film the whole thing, and it's going to be led by Highland Harris, and it's going to feature an all-star band of New York's finest musicians. So I look forward to seeing you soon.
You've already heard from both of our sensational fellows, but I would like to ask Adriana to tell you a little bit more about our fellowship program, the history, the funding of it, and a little bit more about the two very special fellows who have become part of the Armstrong House family over this crazy, crazy year. Adriana, take it away.
Thank you, Ricky. And I really want to take this time to congratulate our fellows who since September 2020 have been, they took a deep dive into all things Louis, collaborating in all museum programming and creating posts for the fellows blogs, West End blog. Maglin has taken on the study of the recording technology that surrounded Louis and his interactions with the reel-to-reel tapes and his machines. Beyond that, she has reflected extensively about the experience of Louis's music at a personal level. This may be because Maglin has a BA in Latin American Studies and Music from Emory University in Atlanta. But also she has a master's in ethnomusicology. And Tatiana, who is a fine arts major with a master's in studio arts, has shared thoughtful essays on Louis's experience as a Black man in America and around the world. We have really enjoyed to see these posts that are very insightful and really reflect the work and the research that they have been doing in our archives. I will also want to give a shout out to our former archivist, Sarah Rose. I hope she's doing great, moving on to exciting things. And this blog was really her legacy to the museum. So I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to co-coordinate the fellowship program with Sarah for over 3 years. And we have to thank immensely to the Fonte Foundation for granting us with 5 years of this museum fellowship that every year has drawn amazing young scholars selected after a very competitive national search. We applaud the work they have done so far. Thank you, fellows. The fellows will have their final presentations on Friday, June 4th. So we are really looking forward to that.
Thank you for that, Adriana. That was great. The fellows are here, and so I would like them to have a few moments. We'll start with Maglin. When you applied for this fellowship, you know, it was offered as a particular thing with you'll be given house tours and working in the archives. It didn't quite end up that way. So how have you dealt with changing expectations, and what have you gained from the experience, and what are you still looking forward to in the second half of the experience?
Well, despite the unusual circumstances of this year, I really feel as if the fellowship has been a really wonderful professional opportunity. And I think this year in particular, one of the things that I've enjoyed doing is exploring the archives. I mean, we've already heard several people talk about the archives and how special they are, but for several different reasons. I mean, just as someone who comes in and who's interested in learning more about Armstrong, there's so many little gems you can find in the archives, finding out the connections that Lewis had to some of my favorite singers who I grew up listening to is always really exciting. But then from a research standpoint, I think that the archives are obviously are really exciting to look through because you know, through by looking at the objects, you're able to come up with different mini research topics every week. For example, the blog posts that we write allow us just to explore some small research topics. Some of the topics that I've been most interested in this term are related to Lewis and his interactions with recorded sound and audio technology, particularly in the den. So that's been something that I've been writing about a lot, and it means that I get to listen to a lot of his personal reel-to-reel tapes, and so that's always fun because you hear Lewis, just natural Lewis, just laid back in his house. So that's been a real treat.
Wonderful. Tatiana, same question. How has the experience been for you?
Yeah, it's been really, really great. I've got to say that I didn't know what to expect coming into it, just because the pandemic was so unpredictable or has been this entire time. Um, and I could say that I don't think I knew as much as I thought I knew about Lewis, and I think that is the best part about any experience, learning. And I've definitely done that with the help of everyone in this space. Songs I didn't know, Lewis made albums, just like, his life, four wives. Come on, like, Lewis, how did you do it? These are like questions that I think I ask myself, and I kind of answer myself too by that same deep dive through the archives, as Macklin was talking about. As an artist, I feel like I try to put together these pieces and these stories to try to make Lewis's life make sense as, a black man growing up or in creating like life and legacies throughout the time that he was like, early 1900s, and just kind of how that relates to my life today, how that relates to my nephews, and, what they'll be doing in the world. And so I've really, really appreciated this entire time just looking through and getting inspired by just Lewis's collection, his experiences, as well as working with all of you all. If there's any day that sitting in this room, listening to stuff or watching stuff gets to be a little bit like sad, seeing you guys' faces and hearing you guys talk about stories or something that happened at the house or what the update is, it's definitely given me like more push to keep going through it. And so I've enjoyed it. I'm really, really happy and blessed to be a part of the family right now, and I'm looking forward to everything that continues.
Okay. The Louis Armstrong House Museum has been closed to the public since March. So some of you might be wondering, with the whole staff working from home, what's going on at the actual space. There is one man and one man alone who is the guardian of the Armstrong House itself on 3456 107th Street. And I would like to ask Adriana to say a few words in tribute to our facilities man, but really the heartbeat of the Armstrong House, Junior Armstead. Adriana?
Yeah, we really, if we could have a prize, definitely they all go to Junior. Since March, he has been there literally every day, taking care of. You wouldn't know. I mean, everyone that has a home knows how much it takes to take care of it, but a museum, um it's even beyond. And he's there. He loves the garden like it's a hobby, and he makes sure that not only that the site is it's perfect, but that people also understands what's going on. So he's really important for the community. um, I've been in touch with him, and he has been very responsible getting his vaccine, and keeping every activity in the house go smoothly. We have had renovations inside the house, a floor, a ceiling redone, and um, mm, you name it. And he has been there, so willing and with so much love. And it's all about him being inspired by Lewis's story. I've talked to him, and he has reignited his hobby for drawing. So while sitting through these renovations, he has sent me a drawing of young Lewis that he drew himself. Great eyes drawing. So I'm just we know that when Junior is at the house is well taken care of.
Amen. Let's have a round of applause for Junior, and also for the we should mention other staff members who've been hard at work. Pedro Espinoza is not here today, but he is the brains behind so many of the grants that kept us funded and kept us all employed. And so thank you, Pedro, for all your diligence and bringing the money in. Dan Wempa, our diligent consultant who asks all the tough questions and is always about 10 steps ahead of us when we're planning our programs and planning the construction for the new centers. So thank you, Dan. And that's really it. Tiny team, small team, dedicated team, but we are still so loyal and dedicated to this legacy and the story of Louis Armstrong. If you're watching this, you are watching it on Facebook Live. So the donate button is below. I was close. The donate button is below. If you'd like to support our efforts, you could also check our website and become a member. And we just need to take a minute and thank the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation, thank Queens College, Kupferberg Center of the Arts, Fund 2 Foundation, our entire board of trustees, and all the people who have gotten us to this point. It's really been an incredible journey, and we all learned a lot about ourselves in this past year. But we, as you can tell, there's no quit in this group. We're still coming up with more ways to tell the story. And one thing that we recently started was what we're calling the Louis Armstrong House Virtual Experience, and we kicked off the series in March. And it was such a hit that we have now scheduled the next several months. Adriana, why don't you tell folks about the Louis Armstrong House virtual experience and some of the other programming that we have scheduled through the end of summer?
Yes. So the virtual exhibit, Gray Hang, come hang with us. We are using the house still as a backdrop to tell Lewis's story. So if you haven't been at the house, it's a great introduction to it. But I'm telling you right now, you're gonna want to come anyways, in person. But we are gonna do it every month. You can find it on Eventbrite as the Louis Armstrong House Virtual Experience Live. So yeah, we're also actually gonna have a special series called the Dance Series, which will focus on specific topics. We're gonna hit it off with Lewis's story by women's voices on May 8th, which is a Saturday at 12. Saturday at 12. And in May 19th, Wednesday, at 4 p.m.
Now you've gotten a sense of the crazy ways we managed to adapt to a rapidly changing world in this past year. Now imagine being brought in and made the executive director of a museum, completely in transition, working from home, going virtual, getting ready to open up a new cultural center. Uh, Not an enviable task, but we have been blessed with the leadership and guidance of the incredible new executive director, Regina Bain. And Regina wants to join us for a few moments. So here is Regina to tell you about her experience in this wild and crazy year at the Armstrong House. Regina?
Hello, I'm Regina Bain, Executive Director of the Louis Armstrong House Museum. Thank you so much for being with us as we reflect on this past year It's been a challenging year, but in the tradition of Louis and Lucille Armstrong, we have persisted, and we are so thankful to all of you for your support as we do that. And we hope we've done a little bit to support you as well. So we've been reflecting on the past year. I want to talk about the year to come. So we are preparing to reopen the historic house, our crown jewel. We're preparing for a grand opening of the new Louis Armstrong Center, a 14,000 square foot facility that's been 15 years in the making. It will feature a state-of-the-art interactive exhibit curated by Jason Moran, a 70-seat theater, performance space, the archives, the largest archive of any Black jazz musician, and one of the largest of any Black musician. And this is going to give us the space to not only preserve and share the legacy of Louis and Lucille Armstrong, but to live the Armstrong values of artistic excellence, education, and community. Artistic excellence through things like the Armstrong Now program and what the Jazz Room will allow us to do with performances from around the globe and from down the block. The education, what we have always done, POPs, TOPS, CASA programs, and thinking about our K through 12 programs, high school in particular, our new Voices of Freedom program, and potentially scholarship programs and others to come in the future. And of course, community. We think about community globally and locally. Globally, partnering with the Forum for Cultural Engagement, with the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. We know that Louis Armstrong was a global figure who traveled the world. Can we travel in his footsteps and bring those cultures back to Queens, to New York? That's what we want to do globally. And then locally, we live in Corona, Queens, and this community was hit hard by the COVID-19 virus. And we want to acknowledge that and celebrate the lives of the people who are here. And we are going to do that through a jazz funeral. Jazz funeral is a part of the traditions of New Orleans, the mourning tradition of New Orleans. And we want to couple that with the mourning traditions throughout Mexico, Latin America, Central America. Both of those traditions, all of those traditions, many of those traditions feature the horns. Horns processing throughout the streets, making music and acknowledging with reverence those who have passed, but also bringing life to those who are moving into the future. And so we want to partner with this community. We've begun to partner with the Queensboro Dance Theater, with Manhattan, with others, and we're going to continue to do that. So more in store as we preserve and share the legacy and live the values of artistic excellence, education, and community. But I have to do something else, and that is give thank yous. We would not be here without your support and without the support of some incredible people and organizations, including the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation, Queens College, City University of New York, the Fund 2 Foundation, Speaker Corey Johnson, the Bloomberg Foundation, Gilman Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, New York State Council on the Arts, New York City Community Trust, Borough President Donovan Richards, City Council Member Francisco Moya, Landmarks Conservancy Young Arts Foundation, the City and State of New York, our advisory board, and our governing board, including Chair Jerry Chasen, and so many more. So many more. Thank you. We appreciate you. So, we have a year to come, and we cannot wait to see you on the block, to see you online, and to see what the future holds. Welcome home, and happy Jazz Appreciation Month.
So there you have it. That's how we've been spending the pandemic. But as you can see, there are so many exciting things still to come. We thank you for spending your International Jazz Day with us today. And on behalf of the entire staff, we cannot wait to welcome you back to Corona, Queens. But until then, thanks a million, and we'll see you soon. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Rather vex than distress your sight. Stop it when you match. Use my trumpet and start to fun. Play it such a way that you come back to your son. In high